Welcome to Independent Thinking by Highlander Financial Group, your go to YouTube series where we dive deep into the world of finance and business. Join us as we engage with top industry experts to unpack the trends and issues shaping today's investment landscape. Whether you're looking for insights on emerging opportunities or strategies to navigate market challenges, we bring you the independent thinking you need to stay ahead. Let's explore the future of investing together. Representing Global X today on our show is Madeline Ruid. Madeline is a research analyst covering the suite of thematic growth ETFs related to the physical environment, including renewable energy and clean tech for Global X. Prior to joining Global X, Madeline worked as a power and renewables analyst with Fitch Solutions, where she covered markets primarily in the Americas. Previously, she held research roles across a wide range of climate change and renewable energy related topics, including with Bloomberg, NEF, NASA Develop, and the International Food Policy Research Institute. Madeline earned her MA in Climate and Society from Columbia University and a BS in Physical Geography, Cartography, and Geographic Information Systems and Turkish from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Since 2008, Global X's mission has remained unchanged, empowering investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. They have an exchange-traded fund lineup that spans disruptive tech, equity, income, hard to access emerging markets, commodities, and more. And Highlander Financial Group is proud to say they are a partner and our guest on today's program. Well, hello out there in HFG land. My name is Casey Craig, and I'm the founding partner of Highlander Financial Group. And welcome back to our little webcast here. And today on our industry experts segment, Madeline Ruid, who is the thematic research analyst at Global X, has the distinct honor of being our first repeat guest. So congratulations, Madeline.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me back. It's great to be here.
We're very excited to have you back because, as you know, a big topic for me, and all my clients have to listen to me rant and rave about this all the time, is AI and how the infrastructure in our country is being rebuilt or rethought. But since the last time we met, so much has changed. We've got more information, as it were, and you've done another paper, which we're going to put the link to at the bottom of this, so our clients can click on it and read it for themselves. But I'm gonna ask you just a few questions to kind of catch up. So, want to dive right in? Ready?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
great.
let's do it. Okay, so basically, last time we spoke, we had framed this infrastructure, changing as a long-term theme. And today, after just a few months of time going by, your paper highlights that there's about a $3 trillion pipeline now in planned projects in the United States. So where are we kind of in that build out, and
Yeah.
what stands out to you most as sort of the opportunity here?
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, thanks again for having me back. And I know last time we spoke, we discussed, some of the long-term tailwinds that could create opportunities for infrastructure developers. Those range from aging infrastructure assets through to shifting demographics, the build out of AI infrastructure, investments into manufacturing, and rising power needs, just to name a few of those. I think in the last 6 months or so, we've really increasingly seen how AI infrastructure needs, investments into manufacturing, and security concerns are really converging to kind of create new demand and new needs for infrastructure assets. And development. And I think that that's being reflected in some of the various project pipelines and the data that you can find out there. One is from Eaton Corp. They track mega projects. And as you said, at the end of 2025, their mega project pipeline stood at about $3 trillion. A mega project, just for context, can be defined as projects that cost at least $1 billion. So it can be across a lot of different asset classes, your large bridge and road projects.
Mm.
But I think one thing that has really stood out to me is that in 2025, a lot of the growth for mega projects was from data centers. About
Mm.
54% of that year-over-year growth came from data centers,
Mhm.
with a lot of the majority of the remaining share coming from reshoring efforts. I think another thing that has stood out is that only about 16% of that $3 trillion pipeline has reached the construction stages. So there's likely still a multi-year runway left
Mhm.
for opportunities for companies in the infrastructure development landscape.
Right. So if we're trying to frame this in
Yeah,
the investment world, these AI companies, the Nvidias, the all the big companies that we talk about that are benefiting from the AI boom, it really they need to see this infrastructure happen
yeah,
because we're already hearing stories and reading about water shortages potentially on the West Coast in Oregon
yeah,
because of the amount of water that's needed to cool data centers. We're hearing electrical grid capacity being challenged in certain places. So this is not just something you're reading in the paper. These companies are getting involved, and
yeah,
the thing, and this is just pure speculation. I'm not asking, for you to take a side on this, but like sometimes I think, boy, the energy build out is so
yeah,
important to these AI companies.
yeah.
How long, until, and especially as interest rates continue to drop, if we see that, how long until we start to see AI companies start to wade into, the power game, the energy game, where maybe they're taking a stake or buying or just starting their own energy company?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I think one thing that's interesting about this data center build out to your point is that it's not just about like building the physical data center infrastructure
Right.
sites. It's also supporting all of this, support infrastructure, whether that's the roads to these new data center sites that oftentimes are in more
Mm.
rural locations, or to your point, the power grid has become increasingly important. Um, it's estimated that data centers could consume anywhere from 9 to 17% of US electricity by 2030. That would be up from around 4 to 5% in 2025. And so I think you are starting to see these tech companies work increasingly more closely with utilities to kind of speed up some of those, the infrastructure and the generation
Yep.
needs. There's also, to your point, data centers are increasingly considering on-site power generation and looking at energy storage or fuel cells for some on-site solutions. So I think we could see, these AI and tech companies increasingly become more involved in the power sector for sure.
So my next question was about the data center build out,
Yeah,
and the question was going to be, so what are we not seeing, in
yeah.
the news, or what are you seeing on the research side that maybe we're not hearing in the news that might surprise us?
Yeah, I think just the fact that it is driving so much of the power
Yep.
growth story. I mean it's definitely something that we're reading about in the news, but I think the overall scale is still trying to be understood by people throughout the power industry and the data center
Hmm.
industry. In addition, I just think looking at, what it actually takes to build out these data center sites, it takes a lot of resources, whether that's, equipment, materials, steel, cement, critical minerals as well, alongside your labor and kind of your engineering services.
Yeah, and so you're right. I mean, just like everything else with AI, it's like we hear about it, and then
Yeah,
90 days later, these companies are really far down the path, a lot further down the path than we realized. So I'll give you an example. There's been reports of whether it was Microsoft or one of the big companies
yeah,
purchasing nuclear energy in
yep,
bulk already. So
yep,
that's where my concept of how long before these companies decide they're just going to try to get
yeah,
the ultimate price certainty and actually be the power company because they're buying it
yeah,
in bulk because they want the price certainty as soon as they can get it. And we're also hearing, I think it's Microsoft is reviving, was it 3 Mile Island in New York. So that's a Microsoft thing. And
yep,
and that's all about price certainty
yep,
and diversity of energy sources. So I mean, that wasn't something, and I'm sure it was on their mind long before, but that wasn't even something that was on my radar 6 months ago.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think that that's been one of the surprises for the power industry is just how involved, tech companies have become in kind of pushing forward the revival within, the nuclear power industry, for example, with restarting some of these projects, extending the lifespan of traditional nuclear, and also kind of giving, investment or partnerships to help speed up the development of small modular reactors. And at the same time, they could also become crucial in helping other technologies scale, like hydrogen fuel cells or energy storage. I think, you'll continue to see the interest from tech within the power sector potentially create benefits for developers
Yeah, yeah.
there.
So I'm imagining the Amazon guy talking to the power guy saying, so why is it taking so long to get the
Yeah.
and the power guy says, well, we got to have these things,
Yep.
and these things they take time, and like and the Amazon guy says, well, what if we threw some money at it? What if we came and we bought it in bulk, and could we get it faster?
Yeah.
And so they're just figuring it out. They're
Yeah.
they're partnering to figure it out because um, it's just become almost the energy tail wagging the AI dog at this point. I mean, we just didn't. I mean, we talked about last time that this idea that when we first started hearing about AI, like if you're listening to Forbes, for instance, they're saying, well, how do you monetize this thing? I mean, okay, so it helps kids write research papers or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you monetize? Boom, a year later, we're like, whoa, okay, we get it. We see how that happens. And so it's just every time we think we understand a little bit more. And I personally have noticed just in my day-to-day interactions with other people, the level of understanding of how AI works or how AI could work in a person's life has
Yeah.
just has just jumped tremendously.
Totally.
And so it makes sense that we're still trying to figure out how to move forward. So on that point, and this gets to a bigger point I'm going to bring up in just a minute, but in your article, you're pointing out that the impact extends beyond just construction into materials, equipment,
Yeah.
transportation. And so where are you seeing the most activity or momentum? That you mentioned that as one of the things that maybe we're not thinking about, but where are you seeing the most activity in that broader ecosystem?
Yeah, I think we are seeing momentum across, the entire infrastructure value chain. Building out these large, complex projects like data centers or manufacturing facilities really does require everything from, the equipment and the products.
Mhm.
Those have to be transported to the site, and then you
Yep.
need your engineering and procurement and construction. One area in particular that I think we've seen, some momentum or like interesting commentary on is companies involved in the build out of physical power grid infrastructure, or those companies that are providing power management services to end users that have maybe energy intensive sites, right? So companies or data centers or companies that have large production facilities that may want to figure out how to better operate their on-site electricity demand or better manage it. So I think that those are two areas that we've continued to see a lot of interest in. I know when we last talked, I talked about how I felt that like the power grid was kind of an underappreciated area of the discussion in infrastructure development.
Hmm.
I think we're really starting to see that enter,
Hmm.
the front of the conversation. And as a result, companies that are involved in the grid build out and grid management have kind of started to see some of that potential momentum.
So we talked a little bit in a separate conversation, not on film, about supercomputers and the possibility that they may one day come in and be overlaid on the grid to, in other words, not everything is about necessarily getting the ability to get renewable energy stored or be able to store energy for a longer period of time so that you can use it when you need it. That sometimes AI combined with computing power could help us route the energy. Is that a little bit of what you're hearing? Is maybe you know different ways of approaching how to make the grid more successful?
Yeah, I think increasingly, it's about both the infrastructure and building out that physical capacity,
Yep,
replacing aging infrastructure assets, but then also those grid management technologies
exactly.
that can help us potentially over the longer term have a two-way street where data centers could, find ways to save energy and like provide energy back to the grid if there's been a disruption, or maybe they use their on-site electricity to kind of help balance things. There's vehicle to grid technologies that could make electric vehicles more of a two-way street with the power grids as well. So I think we increasingly will start to see some of these smart grid technologies be
Mm,
adopted as the years go by.
man,
Yep.
if it's just mind blowing where this thing is um, where it's all heading. So projects of this scale, which are 1 billion on the lowest end of the spectrum, what are some of the key challenges or constraints that could affect how quickly these build outs happen for us?
Yeah, I think one of the key challenges that we've seen, not only here in the US, but also in other key regions like Europe, is just a complex permitting landscape,
Mm,
especially for power infrastructure projects or, for example, transmission and distribution lines, that, may have like have to cross states. So maybe they need county, state, and federal
mm,
approval. It oftentimes is just a lengthy process that can require a lot of resources. So I think we'll continue to see, some potential headwinds there. But as the power story becomes more central, I think there is the potential for some level of permitting reform. And in addition, we've also seen the emergence of potential headwinds from pushback from local communities. It's something that we've seen across a lot of different types of infrastructure assets in the past.
hmm.
Most recently, we're seeing it with some data center projects, but I
Yep.
think, we'll continue to see data center companies work on water use, electricity use, and we'll likely continue to see many projects move forward, even if there are some hurdles that they need to overcome.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we were talking about this before we started today that, it's just the legislation that was put in place to protect the environment is now, potentially being challenged in order to have this thing move forward. And, the reality is that while, and again, pure speculation and just more the wonder of the topic is the reason
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up is just the fact that we need renewable energy to become more of a thing so that this AI revolution can continue and so that we're not depleting our natural resources and not putting too much pressure on our existing power grid. And so those same laws that were put in place back then and can cause some of this slowdown are the very same things that may need to happen in order for us to move forward into that very direction. Man, just you stop and think about it for a minute, and it's like it's just the most interesting time. I
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm more excited about what I do in the times that we're in today than I have been in a long time, just because I think every day is just this. It's like there's a new thing that you discover, and it's a bigger, greater thing than the day before. Um, and I know there are skeptics of that, but I tend to be more on the rooting for the human triumph through all this. But so when you step back and you look at all this, I mean, this
Yeah.
is a big conversation. So this current wave of infrastructure investment
Yep.
um, is distinct from what we've seen. Is it different from what we've seen in past cycles, or is it like a whole new iteration, or are we seeing the same thing but a little bit different?
Yeah, I think what makes this current wave of infrastructure investment unique is that there's really three key tailwinds that maybe we've seen in the past, but at the current moment, they're all really converging to create, a pretty significant need for infrastructure development here in the United States.
Hmm.
The first is that need around, aging infrastructure assets. I know in our last discussion, we talked a bit about how the American Society of Civil Engineers report gave the overall grade for infrastructure a C. So, there's still significant needs for improving our aging and poor aging infrastructure, our networks that may be in poor condition.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the first major tailwind. The second being, continued public and government funding. So at the beginning of this decade, we saw, the passage of the IIJA, the CHIPS Act, which is supporting the build out of semiconductor manufacturing. Um, while these are starting to wind down, it's expected that spending will continue to create tailwinds for the next few years here. Vulcan Materials, they're a company, one of their earnings calls, they talked about how IIJ highway funding is only about 50% spent, even though, that policy is starting to wrap up.
Mm.
It expires this fall. And then I think at the same time that you have government funding, you also have this injection of private investment, largely focused on data centers, but also manufacturing facilities, utilities. So you're really seeing this convergence of public and private funding at a time where I don't think we've really seen that,
Mm.
at least in the past several decades.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a unique thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got different worlds that typically would not interact that are definitely there. We were having a conversation internally about this, and this is probably uh, maybe not the best. I like this analogy. Some people might argue with it, but I mean, it's like we're seeing wildcatting in the this is the wildcatting of the new energy
Yeah.
because all of these companies are having, I mean, it's no longer about just being able to come up with the best technology and delivering it the best way, because ultimately you need to be able to deliver on the promise of what you're selling to the end consumer. And so in order to do that, you've got to be able to generate the power that you need, and you got to
Mhm.
have the infrastructure. So it's you can't take a shortcut, because if you're building this thing for the long term, you've got to build infrastructure. That anytime you're talking about that, now you're bringing, local and state and national governments into the conversation. So these big companies are having to balance short-term power need and upscale with long-term build out of I mean, really changing America and the way we think and how we do this. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not like energized about, well, that's a pun, isn't it? If you're not super excited about what that all could mean, for instance, jobs. People say, well, AI is going to cost jobs. Well, I mean, I think that's an example of people talking about AI in terms of it's just a technology that's going to cause people to lose their jobs. Not necessarily the case. I think jobs change. For instance, there are now companies in the power industry that are focusing on building software and resources that help route energy once we create it in a better way, how to get it to the right place at the right time rather than wasting. How much energy do we waste, and can we improve on that? And so it's certainly a change, but we're just seeing so much of this all at once. So based on all of this, if you had to create a thesis statement or a research statement for your work in general right now, would you have one? Is there like a summary statement?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think just the overall key takeaway would be that there are several converging, structural trends that are driving this um, pretty unique opportunity for U.S. infrastructure development. And you can kind of take it in various ways, whether, there's the interest in manufacturing or power infrastructure or, your traditional infrastructure assets. We really will likely see a continued investment across the range of infrastructure needs, and that can create opportunities across the infrastructure development value chain. So, usually we think of traditional infrastructure as those that are holding already in operation infrastructure. But I think that one of the key opportunities really lies with those that are going to be leading the continued build out of
Hmm.
infrastructure assets going
Yeah,
forward.
couldn't agree more. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. So, I've made no secret about it. Your research is some of my favorite research I've ever seen. And for our clients, if you get a chance to click on the link and look, Madeline has sort of a time lapse study of the large TSMC plant that's being built in Phoenix, which is just a massive feat of all different kinds of industry. I mean, it's ground shaking, rattling, changing things in a bunch of different ways, and it's just an example of you've got a way of presenting things in a way that I haven't seen before, in a depth and a simplicity of that depth that I haven't seen before, that really has resonated with me. And it's really an honor to be able to get to know you and have these conversations with you, because you've helped me shape, my thought process on a lot of how we direct our clients to invest their money. So I just want to give you the kudos that you're due.
I appreciate it. I hope that everyone that does click on the link finds it useful.
Yeah, I think they will. But whether they click on it or not, they know they're going to get it from me, because your company's website and your research in particular is something I always look for. So hopefully we can get you to come back again, maybe in the fall, with probably another. Never mind everything we said before. We're doing a whole bunch of new things now. That would be great. And but for today, thank you so much. This has been awesome, and the conversation is just getting more and more exciting as far as I'm concerned. And there's nobody better out there to get the story from than you.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. Thanks again for having me.
Okay, out there in HFG land, you make sure you stay tuned to us. We've got more good videos coming your way, and we've got great guests on our show, and it's getting better all the time. And we'll keep delivering. So everybody out there, have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.